In this last tutorial on music, we're going to look at how we can have more incremental control over the volume of our layers rather than the simple kind of binary switching we've had so far. So in the warehouse again, you can see we've got an enemy placed at the opposite end, and I'm going to bring up a layer of music depending on our distance from that enemy. Again, you could tie this to any variable in the game like player health, etc. So we will get our sound cues. So we've got this, and then we're going to bring in as we approach the enemy. So we'll go to Kismet, and first of all we'll just have a play sound for the basic layer, which I'll then select and just add to that. So when the level starts, event level loaded, we can get that started and make that target the player. Now, I mentioned how although we've got a volume multiplier of a play sound, the volume only actually applies when you trigger the sound to play. You can't change the volume of it whilst it's playing. So we've developed a new object for Kismet, which will be available to you when you install the Game Audio tutorial level. Here, GAT Kismet Actions, and we've got the GAT play sound, which as you can see looks slightly different. We're just going to add our second layer to that GAT play sound in the same way, just using the green arrow. But this time we've got control over the fade level, the amount of time it takes to move up to that level. So we're just going to make that. So every time we trigger this fade by sending an input into here, over 0.2 seconds it's going to jump up to whatever we set that level to be. Now we're going to find out the distance between the player and the enemy. So we're going to use the get distance action, and our first variable is going to be the player themselves, and I'm going to make sure that it's not all players, it's just you. And our second is going to be the object itself representing the enemy. So we'll get our distance out of that. So we're going to start a delay, short delay. That's going to loop round, and every time that loops round, it's going to be getting the distance between our player and the player target. Then we're going to get an output of that. And if we look on the overhead view, close these down a second. Okay, we're going to start our player about here, and to the target is about 2000 units. So we need to do some maths on this to convert this distance number into a useful number to send to the volume level of the play sound. So if we do some math, or maths in England, and we divide that number by 2000, okay, and then we need to invert the number so that the closer we get to the target, the volume's actually going to go up rather than down. So the result of that calculation we're then going to use a subtract float, and we're going to get the float result here, and we're going to take that away from the value 1, which is going to have the effect of inverting the value, so that as the distance gets less, our volume goes up. And then the result of that we're going to send to the fade level. Now when we start the level, we want this to be set at 0. So we're going to set variable, make sure that it starts when the game starts. We can't hear it, and then every time this comes through, it's going to trigger this fade. So it's whatever the distance is, we've changed it to be a useful number between 0 and 1, and then over 0.2 seconds it's going to change the volume of our part so that it gradually comes up in increments. So we just need to make sure that we're starting play sound, and we're starting the GAT play sound. Okay. Let's try it. Okay, so when we started, I was actually reasonably close to the target, so you could hear the second part, but now I'm some distance away. We've just got one layer playing. As I get closer to the target, you should hear, as the distance gets less, that bit of math is converting that number to control the volume of our second layer. There it's at our maximum. You can hear that second layer in. And as we move away, it goes back down again. Okay, so having that control over volume here, using the GAT play sound object, is very useful when we're dealing with musical layers. So that's obviously a very simple example. But we could tie it to player health, to the number of enemies, to enemy health, and there's a variety of examples in the book and in the game audio tutorial level. So that rounds up our look at music. We've dealt with simple crossfading, we've looked at how we can use horizontal transitions between chunks of music, and how to do that musically. And then we've looked at a couple of approaches to vertical composition. So we've got the binary approach of simply switching layers on and off, and now we've got this more incremental approach of mixing in layers up and down. And with those basic techniques, there's a lot you can do.